Hi, I'm Paul, and this is a session on PowerApps, and in this session we're going to have a look at galleries within galleries, or subgalleries, nested galleries, however you want to term them. So a little bit of context for you. My background is as an Access and SQL Server developer, relatively new to PowerApps. But getting to grips with it. But there are some times where I can't find good information on the web. Most of the time I can, but sometimes I can't find good information about how to do a particular thing. And so where I find that's the case, I'm recording these videos, putting them up on YouTube, so that others hopefully can benefit from my mistakes and the time I've spent trying to piece different things together. Okay, so let's get straight into it then. So, galleries inside galleries. So we're going to need a data source. So to keep things simple, I'm using a data source which is thoroughly denormalized. So this is a series of orders. There's an order ID, a time that the order was placed, and then for each of these orders there'll be a number of items that the person has ordered from the menu. So as I say, this is a little bit unrealistic in terms of the data, because at this stage what I want to do is get across the concept of the galleries within galleries. In a later video I will cover how we can take a normalized database and get it into this sort of format within PowerApps, so that you can work with more realistic data, but one thing at a time. So I'm going to start with a completely fresh Power App here, and so the first thing I need to do is to go and get my data. So I'm just going to go and grab that data source. Okay, so a new connection. I've just saved it on my personal OneDrive, so we'll scroll through the ever expanding list of connectors. So here we are into OneDrive. So here it comes. I now need to choose an Excel file from OneDrive. So that's the file I was just showing you a moment ago. And it's just called Table 1, very imaginative, so I'm going to connect to that data source. Great, okay, so we're ready to roll. So now what I want to do is I want to insert a gallery, and this bit is important. You want to insert a flexible height gallery, because we don't know how big each of the items in our gallery is going to be, because we've got a gallery which is going to show us the order name and the order date. And then underneath that we might have 1, 2, 3, 4, however many rows for the number of menu items ordered. So we need to have the flexible height gallery here. Fantastic. And now we have got to put in what our data source is going to be. So if you've got an Access background, as I have, this may fox you a little bit for a while. It certainly did me. So when you're doing, for example, reports and sub-reports, or forms and sub-forms in Access, you've got two data sources with a common ID between them, and then you link the two things together. So you've got a different data source for your form and then another one for your sub-form, but they're related, and then in Access you would tell it what the relationship is, which are the related fields. That's not quite how you do it in PowerApps. In PowerApps you've got to shape the data first into a format which has got a record, and then within that record a sub-record within it. So let's show you how you do that and talk through that a little bit. So this is the GroupBy command, if I can type correctly. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our table 1, and then we're going to say which column are we going to group it by. So in this case it's going to be our order header ID. Okay, so if we have a little look at our database again, so we've got an order header ID, which is repeated a few times because each person may have ordered multiple menu items, as we can see here, but order header ID is the one with the name and the time on it, and we want that to only show once for each record, so we're grouping by that field. So group by the order header ID, and now we need to give a name to this group or this sub-record. So I'm going to give it a prefix group, and we'll say group order detail, because this is where we're going to get the details from. Okay, so that's all resolved quite nicely, and what we will do now then is add an item from the insert tab. So add a label, and that has defaulted straight away to be the order header ID. Okay, a little word about this GroupBy then. Let's see if we can get this GroupBy in a format where we can see what's going on a little bit more clearly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a button. Okay, this is just for demonstration and testing, this isn't part of the solution. And on select I'm going to have it do this GroupBy, and I'm going to have it go into a collection so we can see what's going on with that. Supposed to be safe, we'll do clear collect. Okay, and yeah, so we've got to give it a name, so I'll call this col GroupBy, and then the item, which is going to be that. I don't think there's any more arguments for collect, is there? No, we can just keep repeating item. Okay, so collections are local copies of data, so my button is just going to take the GroupBy information and put it into a collection so we can see what's going on. I can hopefully demonstrate a bit better. So let's hit this button. So hopefully that has now put it in the collection. So if I now go to File and I go to Collections. Okay, so here we are. So this is my col GroupBy. So remember, this isn't part of the solution, this putting it in a collection and putting a button on it. This is just to try and demonstrate the data shaping that the GroupBy does. So I've ended up with 2 columns in this local table. So we can see the order header ID, and then under group order detail all we're showing is this little grey box. But if we click on the little grey box we can see what's inside it. So there we are, we can see that for each order header ID we've got 1 or more records underneath it which have all of the information about what items have been ordered and how many items have been ordered and so on. Okay, so if I go into another one of these, 243, we'll see some different records in there. So I'm calling it data shaping. I'm not sure if that's the official term, but we've got a record, and within that record we've got a number of sub-records. Okay, hopefully that's clear enough. Okay, we don't need that button anymore. I think I'll get rid of that. There we go. Okay, so back into here then. So we've got our gallery and we've got our order header ID. Now that doesn't look fantastic at the moment. We want to see the order name and the order date, but we'll come back to that in a moment. Just carrying on with this idea of the data shaping. let's do the next step. So the next step is I'm going to add another gallery inside this gallery. Now, I find PowerApps to be a bit awkward to work with when you're trying to put things inside galleries. You're never quite sure when you click to add an item whether it's going to go into the gallery or not. So the trick is select something which is already in the gallery and then do your insert. So I need another flexible height gallery because there are going to be multiple items that go within each one. So here we are. So here's my gallery. I've got gallery 1 and then my sub-gallery is gallery 2. I'm just going to move this around a little bit so that this is appearing under the order header ID. And then I've got to set what my data source is going to be. So my data source for this is going to be this item. Yeah, so this item is my full GroupBy, and then the group order detail is the sub records. So I'm going to choose that, and now I can merrily start to add some labels in here. Okay, did that order go in the right place? Oh no, this is what I was saying before about trying to make sure you get the records in the right thing, or sorry, the controls in the right thing. So let's hit the add an item from the insert tab, and hopefully this time the label will go in the right place. Yes, it has. So we can see over here on the left on the navigator that this one is nested inside. So this label 3 is within gallery 2. So as I was saying, let's sorry. Yeah, so we've already done, sorry, the previous step with that. So in this one I can say give me the menu item name. There we go. So I can see the menu item now that has been ordered. I'm going to move this a little bit smaller. I'm going to put another label in as well, and I'm going to say what quantity has been ordered. That's all we want to see on here for the moment. So on here, let's go for the order detail quantity. Fantastic. So we're seeing things starting to come together now. There's a few little issues that we've got, as I think you can see here. So we've got multiple items under this order 245. Okay, but the gallery, although it's a flexible height gallery, hasn't grown enough to show all of the items in it. So I can scroll inside that sub gallery and I can scroll the main gallery as well. Okay, so let's sort that out next. Okay, let's just go into gallery 2. So I'm just going to move my controls in this gallery up near the top of the gallery if I can. I'll do that. Let's see. Shuffle that across a little bit. Make sure we've got plenty of space for the name there. Yeah, that's good. A little bit smaller there, and if we're being pedantic, we can right align that quantity. Fine. Okay, so I want to specify the height of this sub-gallery. So I want to say, okay, if there are lots of items in here, then make it bigger. If there's a few items, then make it smaller. So let's go to gallery 2. Let's get its height. And now that I've got its height, rather than it being fixed 188 all the time, I'm going to set the height to be the count of the number of items within that gallery. So I have noticed there's something a little bit funky going on with the autocomplete here. It's only starting to give me options once I've typed a bit in. So the height should be the count of that multiplied by, I'm going to say 60 for a moment. Okay, why does it not like this? Okay. No. Okay. Now I'm going to go to one that I prepared earlier and just double check what my syntax needs to be for that height. Okay, yeah, because I haven't put in the name parent for the record, so let's just put that in. Group order detail. Oops. Careful when double clicking. That's one of the frustrating things with the PowerApps designer. Okay, so it doesn't matter what we count, okay, because we're just counting the number of rows. So counting any of the fields within the group order detail should be fine. And I'm multiplying it by the line height that I think we're going to need. I want a little bit of a gap between each of the headers as well, so I'm going to put in a plus 60 on the end too. Let's just check what the height is of this. Oh, okay, that's height 70. So I'm going to make the height of these lines 60, and what I've said is in the gallery height it needs to be 60 times the number of items that I've got in my list. And then I've put a plus 60 on the end as well, just so that we've got a little gap before we start on the next record. Now, one thing to be aware of with the designer when you're working with these is it doesn't look right in the designer. So you've got to hit the play button and then it should start to sort itself out properly. So I got a little bit of lag in there, but we're starting to see the solution coming together now. So I can see the order, in this case it's the order ID. I want to replace that with the order name in a moment and the order date, but for right now we've got the order ID and we've got a number of items underneath each one, and the galleries are changing in height to make sure that all of these items are visible. There we go. Okay, so some of these are having some difficulty rendering. They do render fine on the actual mobile devices. As I say, when we're in the designer, they don't display properly at all, and when we go into the play mode, they sort of just about display properly once you've scrolled up and down a little bit. But on the mobile devices, I found that they are actually okay. So let's come out of here. Let's do just a couple more things. So here's what I want to be the order name. At the moment it's the order ID, and I can't choose, the field is called order header name. I can't choose order header name. That's not a valid option at the moment, because remember what we did with our GroupBy command. So there was our GroupBy command, and the result of that was that we got a collection. Sorry, the collection isn't there anymore, but we got the collection where we had one column which was just the order header ID, and then the other column contained this sub-table, this sub-record with the information in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a lookup. So I'm going to say, right, I want to look up, and the source for my lookup is going to be my table 1. That's my data source that's not been changed in any way. And I want to look up a record where the order header ID is equal to whatever the order header ID is in the current gallery. And the record that I want to bring back is going to be the order header name. So there we are. So now we've got the order header back. Sorry, the order header name in. And we wanted the date as well. So let's insert another label. And we'll just shuffle that into place. And easiest thing here is just going to be to copy the one that gets us the order header name and say, well, rather than giving us the order header name again, give us the order header time it's called in here. There we go. So now that's sorted. Let's see how that looks when we hit the play button. Great. So now we've got our order header name and the order time, and then we can see under that the orders that have been placed. A couple of other quick things, because it's still not looking fantastic. Perhaps we want to format this a little bit. So what I could do here is I could add a label. Sorry, want to make sure I add the label to the gallery. So select something in the gallery first of all. So this is the upper gallery. I'm going to put a label in which has been defaulted to the order header ID, but I don't want any text to show at all. I'm just going to use that to set a color. So let's go for a fill color, and we'll have a light blue. And that's now covered up the order header name and the date, but just like in things like PowerPoint, we have got the ability to reorder things. So I'm going to send this blue banner to the back. Send it all the way to the back. There we are. So now we've got a little bit of a heading showing up on there, and we will also make those bold. And then when we hit the play button, great, we've got something that's looking really not too bad now. So that's your galleries within a gallery. It all sort of hinges on making sure that your data is in the right format. So you have to use this GroupBy command so that you've got a main record, and then alongside that you've got a sub record which can have, or a sub, sorry, you've got your two columns where you've got an ID or the thing that you're grouping on, and then alongside that what you have got is a sub table which can have one, none, or many rows of data within it. And then, as we've said, what we have to do is the main gallery defines this GroupBy, or we have to attach a data set which is based on this GroupBy, and that has a name for the sub records. So then when we go into the sub gallery inside it and we go to the items, we can set it to the sub records and the sub table, and then we can just go ahead and we can add, as normal, our labels, our controls, and tie them to the data. Just in summary then, the other thing you need to remember to do is to make sure that you have used flexible height galleries and that you set the height that you want the gallery to have. So as a reminder, here we are, and the way we're doing that is we're saying, okay, each line has a height of about 60, so I need this gallery to adjust its height, so it is the number of lines multiplied by the height of a line, and then, as I say, I've just put in a plus 60 on the end so that we've got a little gap between the items. Okay. One further thing I will show, because it might catch you out, is if you have fairly long text that doesn't fit in very well. Okay, we can see this is not looking great in terms of how this has come out. So something that you can do is you can set the auto height property to true, to try to make sure that the text doesn't end up overlapping. So let's make this even smaller. Oopsie. Okay, very small now. I want its auto height set to true. I'm having to do that again because I've accidentally manually adjusted the height, which has caused it to lose that property rather than auto height. It's changed to the other one. Okay, so it takes a little while for the system to catch up, but it's a little neater than it was. Of course, the issue that we have now is we've said that we want the gallery height to be a multiple of the number of items. Now that these items can cross multiple lines, then sometimes we're having to scroll within the subgallery, which is not fantastic. And I haven't found a solution to that, I'm afraid. So let's just make that nice and wide again and hope that the majority of our data at least fits within a single line. Very last thing then that I've just thought of, sorry, jumping in and out of stuff. If you want to try and make an adjustment to the subgallery, so if you want to move it or you want to bring it down a little bit, so in this case I've got it overlapping the blue of this header, which doesn't look fantastic. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this first and you'll see why, is I'm going to adjust the height of this gallery, and look what's happened to my height property. Because I've manually adjusted the height of the gallery, then PowerApps has said, oh, you don't want the formula then, you don't want this thing to automatically work out the height for you. You've manually set a height, so I'm just going to overwrite the formula that you had in there with a static value. So then I need to paste that back in again so that the gallery is still going to adjust its height based on what's gone in there. Okay. There we go. So, as I say, in the web player, these things do tend to jump around a little bit as you scroll past them. The HTML figures itself out properly. In the mobile app, as I've said, it works a lot more reliably. Okay, so that's galleries inside galleries. I hope that has been useful. As ever, please leave a comment if you've got any questions or any suggestions, and as I say, I will follow up with a later session, because I've kind of cheated here, and I've made sure that my data is all one nice, easy to work with table. Of course, in reality, we're probably going to have something a little bit more like this, or at least hopefully we are. So here we are. So we'd expect to have a more normalized data layout, and of course at the moment PowerApps can't accept views from sources like SQL Server, so there's a whole load of gymnastics that you have to do inside PowerApps itself to get the data into this sort of a format, so that you can go ahead and do the GroupBy. But that is for another session. Okay, thanks very much everyone, and we'll see you next time.